Welcome back to the Compassionate Capitalist Show, where purpose fuels profit and wealth empowers change. So today, not letting me scroll my script. There we go. It was taking a moment here. We are live. It's sort of like Stephen Colbert, live recorded. So you do get all of the fun and the excitement that we don't actually know what's going to happen in the next 30 to 45 minutes. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear us, see us, and gain great value out of this. Because today, as you listen in, you're going to learn about cash flow management and how to maximize profits, whether in heavy industry like high costs associated with construction and manufacturing. There's always a high cost associated to the generating that revenue. And my guest, Luke Boyinger, is very familiar with. And often the errors that are made by companies that will influence their outcomes. You see, most founders are not financial specialists and not aware of the different sources of capital and financing, how to use them together, when to use them, and how to qualify for them. Cash management can be a challenge for many CEOs. Today, as I bring Link, excuse me, as I bring Luke in just a few minutes into the conversation, as an entrepreneur, I want you to listen to the key insights he shares about mastering cash flow management, the key to sustainable business growth and profitability, how to manage and deploy the capital, because that's one of those things when you're raising capital, you get it, and sometimes you just feel like it's a never-ending supply because you never had that much cash sitting in your checking account or your corporate account, and in reality you have some very specific uses that you're supposed to be using it for. And when he and I got together previously, we talked about some of the crazy misappropriations and misuses of funds that some founders do, and that's a big, big, big no-no. So we'll be covering how to that part of it, how to rise up to those financial challenges in high growth industries. And as an angel investor, you're going to want to be listening for the strategic financial planning for the companies that you're invested in. The information shared today will apply not just to industrial companies, but really even like SaaS companies that live and breathe by the different types of contracts and collection methods that they use, maximizing returns and minimizing risk. And for all of the above, leveraging fractional CFO services to accelerate the wealth creation and the value that's being created in your business so that you can exit rich. So let me introduce you to Luke. Luke Boyinger is the CEO of Krazumi CFO and Advisory, a company that helps companies in the construction space and contractors improve cash flow management and maximize profits. And he is determined to enable executives in construction, contracting, and the trades to gain financial control to guarantee enduring success. He is also the author of 7 Financial Mistakes That Put Construction Companies Out of Business. So you'll hear a lot more about that. But welcome to the Compassionate Capitalist Show, Luke. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Karen. It is a pleasure to be here today and looking forward to diving into some of these topics with you.
Okay, great. So, they say that entrepreneurs are either born or bred. You started on your path to master the art of successful business management and then later to build your own business around advising companies along those lines. There was an early experience that ignited this lifelong passion for business finance and led you to pursue a degree in accounting and get your CPA license. If you would, could you share that sort of those early experiences and those the that led you, that forged your path along this way?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Really, my story is the foundation of why I'm doing what I do today, and that is that I come from a family of entrepreneurship and saw some of the struggles that can happen when you don't really have that financial skill set in the business, which is what kind of propelled me down the path I ended up going down. Because I got to watch my grandpa build a business for it was over 60 years,
Wow.
and at the end of the day, when he had some health issues and had to retire kind of overnight, his business was worth the auction value of the assets. He ran a local dirt excavation company, did really well for himself, but he was the business. And when he wasn't able to work anymore, the business didn't exist anymore, and he he sold a business of 60 years literally had an auction and just auctioned off all his equipment, and that was the end. Rather than having a good financial exit plan in place to get some value out of what he spent his whole life building. Um,
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of businesses out there that they business owners that maybe ones that don't actually go and raise capital. They just have done what your grandfather did and
mhm.
worked hard, built it up over time, and they oftentimes will do their books for the tax man rather than for the
Yep.
bank or for anything else or creating, the kind of programs that can create generational wealth. So sorry to hear about that, and it's good to know that you're out there to advise companies such as that and learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And my parents were entrepreneurs as well, and they had a business go bankrupt during the 2007 2008 financial crisis. And kind of different scenario there where again, the root cause of the issue is just not having a really deep, robust financial skill set in the business, where we really thoroughly understood our cash conversion cycle, our profit margins at the product level, um, the real financial data that drives strategic decision making. So we just weren't really able to put ourselves in a position in that business where we were prepared to weather a really challenging storm like that financial crisis, which was long and brutal. And a lot of businesses went bankrupt during that time, and ours was one of them. And so, two experiences there where I saw a glimpse of what entrepreneurship could be in terms of the type of life that it can provide to you and your family, and an amazing journey that entrepreneurship is, but also some of the pain that can come with it when it isn't done as well as it could be on the financial side of the house. And that's what launched me down the path of pursuing a career in finance and becoming a CPA, and really trying to close that skill set gap because I wanted to learn the right way to do it.
Yeah. So let's get started with a real basic question because it's come up in my space, with entrepreneurs that are either in a growth stage looking for capital and or even just life experiences in the companies my husband worked for, large and small. So what what does it take to qualify as a CFO, and what is it? How is it? Because I've always thought of CFOs as being like this real sort of top of the mountain kind of a person. But I remember back when I first graduated from college, one of my friends straight out of school got a job as a CFO, and I'm thinking, don't you have to kind of like climb a ladder to do
Yeah.
that? And what's the difference between a CFO and a comptroller?
Yeah, great questions. So to answer your question, what are the requirements to be a CFO? Unfortunately, none. There is no barrier to entry. There's no certification you have to get to be able to claim the title of CFO. There's no educational requirement or years of experience. CFO is just a title that's handed out by companies to people who lead the finance side of the business. So you can go to college, major in French horn, and get a job as CFO the next day after you graduate. There's nothing that prevents that from happening. But the reality is that if you own a business and you hire a CFO with no experience and a degree in French horn, you've just hired a CFO who doesn't know anything that can help you. So it actually does create a real problem in the industry because the title of CFO just gets thrown around, and it kind of loses some of its meaning and some of its value because there's a lot of people with that title who can't actually do any of the work that a CFO is supposed to do in a business.
Is there a any kind of fiscal responsibility for being a CFO? If you screw things up, do you get in trouble if is it kind of on you, or is this on the company because they made the mistake of hiring you
Yeah, I mean, it's
or
really
not
kind of
hiring you? because you're an expert that you hired the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean it's really just kind of on the company. Like if you hire the wrong person that doesn't have the right skill set and put them in a role that they're not qualified for, and it blows up in your face. I mean that's kind of what you were asking for when you did that, right? And
Yeah.
it's not that business owners are trying to do that. It's just they don't know what they don't know, right? So they're sitting around, they're at the bar with their buddies, and their buddies are talking about their CFO, and oh, my CFO did this for me, and oh, my CFO did that for me, and you're a business owner sitting there thinking, well, crap, I don't have a CFO. Maybe I don't belong at the table here. Like maybe I'm not a real entrepreneur. I don't have a CFO. This is a problem. So what's that entrepreneur do? Well, they show up in the office the next day and they go point at somebody in their business and say, hey, congratulations, you're my CFO now, because they need to feel like they have a CFO like everybody else does to feel validated and vindicated that they're a real entrepreneur. But all they did was bestow a title upon somebody who doesn't actually have the skill set to perform that role, and so they don't get any value from that role. What a CFO really should be doing is driving the financial strategy of the business. There's a reality of where you are today and a goal that you're trying to get to at some point in the future. And the distance between those 2 points is a financial roadmap. There's a financial game plan that you have to have in place to get from where you are to where you want to be. And the CFO is the one who's supposed to be building that financial roadmap and putting the company in a financially healthy place where they're going to have the profit and the cash flow to go and pursue the growth goals that the owner has for the business. And if your CFO is not doing that, you don't have a CFO. You have somebody with a title who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, so that kind of leads into, I was gonna, kind of wrap up with this, but we'll just like put it out there now. Um, because sometimes, people say, well, I can't afford a CFO, right? And that's maybe why they default to somebody in their office that,
Yeah.
seems to be good at business and things like that. And there is this, fractional concept. I mean, it's across the board, and most C-level types of jobs are available, and the value is that you can get somebody that, particularly where we've had layoffs or restructuring of companies, where somebody that is really experienced in this
Yeah.
space, like you worked as an auditor for Ernst and Young. You pretty much know financial statements and the risks and what needs to happen and the good
Yeah.
things and the bad things and like where to avoid the potholes. And so being able to hire somebody at a part time at a fraction of the cost of a full time, when you're not necessarily as big of a company that has a full time requirement of managing all of a lot of complex financial statements or cash flow management. So you know
Yeah.
talk about how that industry has evolved and why it makes fiscal sense,
Yeah.
financial responsibility for a entrepreneur to at early stage on through partly into the growth stage to look into having fractional CFOs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 'cause the reality is, if CFOs were free, everyone would have one, right? So it's not really a question of whether or not you can get value out of a CFO in your business. For most business owners, it is a question of, can I afford this person? And I'm working on a potential client right now that I'm trying to bring into my business and be their CFO as a fractional CFO. And I was having a conversation with him, and he said, I'm sitting here wondering if I can afford to bring you guys in and have you do fractional CFO for us. But I think maybe I'm asking the wrong question. Maybe the question I should be asking is, can I afford not to?
There you go.
Because we've got some real financial challenges that we're trying to solve in our business, and none of us have the skill set to solve those problems, and they're costing us upwards of $1 million a year to not have these problems solved. So it's like, yeah, I'm sitting here fretting about whether or not I can afford a fractional CFO, when the reality is that person's probably going to come in and fix my $1 million a year issue. That's going to put a lot more money in my pocket than not having them around. So
Yeah.
it's really a question of how much CFO can you afford, not can you afford a CFO. Because you may not be able to afford a full-time $250,000 a year CFO, but you probably also don't need one, which is good. So fractional comes in and fits that gap where you need a CFO, but you don't have 40 hours a week of CFO work that needs to be done, so you don't need a $250,000 a year employee. So you can go out and get a fractional CFO for literally a fraction of the cost of a full-time CFO. And it's really giving you the opportunity to buy the amount of CFO that you need for where you are in business and the problems that you're trying to solve.
So that I will circle back because I have a company that I'm just beginning to work with. Um, they're they they're trying they want to expand, make some acquisitions. I'm looking at. I had these ideas about where to get the capital to do that. They want to expand with their operations in other parts of the parts of the country, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I'm getting in between. I'm looking at getting them a loan to pay down some other debt that they have, so that they takes the monkey off their back.
Yeah.
He's really tense about this, but he has a comptroller, and I wasn't sure if I would be stepping on the comptrollers because that title, to me, comptroller and CFO are kind of the same but different. So, what would I mean? Does a comptroller, because the comptroller didn't seem to have that acumen of you know financial strategy for the
Yeah.
business and what to do. It's clear to me that they're doing their books for the tax man because they've got a company
Yeah.
that owns real estate that these companies pay to, so it's a tax write off for that, and all these kind of things. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so controller and CFO are two very different roles. So you can think of the controller as usually like the chief accountant in the business. Their job is really compliance management, making sure that the financials of the company are compliant at all times, that the accounting is aligned with the requirements of the accounting standards under US generally accepted accounting principles, making sure that taxes are done on time, sales tax is paid on time. They are the compliance division of the company, making sure that all of the things that we've already done have been accounted for correctly. That is the controller's job. The CFO's job is to say, okay, now that all of the accounting is correct, we have a bunch of really good quality data coming out of our accounting function now. How do we use this data to look at the future? How do we build budgets and projections and forecasts using this accounting data to build that financial roadmap that we talked about earlier to get us from where we are today to where we want to be in the future? So CFO starts where controller ends.
Okay, so let's get into some of that kind of stuff where we hinted about it at the top about having a business, a financial strategy that aligns with the business strategy. So it's budgets, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
having a spending plan with strategic goals. Should you get it? There's lots of different types of debt out there. What is the
Yeah.
short term, long term debt? Are you going to sell off equity in order to get some cash on hand to grow a little bit? So talk about how you work with clients on making sure that they understand what they need to be planning for. And I think when we talked before, we talked about the difference of, in some cases, like an LLC and having it set up so that you can, versus like a C Corp, having it set up so that you can retain part of your cash flow so you can budget and plan for the future. You don't have to disperse it all out as, personal income, when you're an LLC. And I think that's done through the operational agreement or organizational documents on how that's handled. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you can you can build up a cash balance in the business whether you're an LLC or a C corp. It's a little easier to distribute money out of an LLC than it is a C corp, so money tends to kind of leak out, if you will, a little faster. every time the owner drives by the car lot and sees the newest version of the truck that he just has to have. So yeah, that is a reality. But in terms of building a financial plan and really constructing that financial roadmap for where you want to go, it all starts with the goals of the business owner. What is it that they're really trying to achieve? Do they want to build as big of a business as they can in the next 10 years and sell it and ride off into the sunset and retire? Or are they building a generational company where they want to hand it off to their kids someday and let their kids continue to take it and run with it? Depending on what their goals are, that informs the strategy that we take. And what's their appetite for risk, and what's their appetite for just pain and difficulty, and how much do they want to work? If we're talking about 10% year over year organic growth versus going out and trying to 5x the company every year through strategic acquisitions, those are two very different plans that require two very different cash flow strategies. Where you can probably handle 10% year over year organic growth and just cash flow it with the profits of the company, and you don't even need to go have the debt conversation. Whereas you're not gonna 5x every year for the next 5 years through strategic acquisitions without bringing on some strategic lending partners that can help finance those acquisitions that you need to do to see the growth that you're wanting to see. So it all is informed by what the owner is trying to accomplish, where they want to get, and then we just start building a plan that fits what they want to achieve.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, how does that financial clarity, I guess you would call it financial clarity, is knowing where you want to go and then
Yeah.
having the experience of a CFO to say, here's your options on how to get there and how to fund that.
Yeah.
How does that drive, business success and, wealth accumulation even for the owners and I guess in the investors in that part?
Yeah, it just makes your likelihood of success significantly higher. Because what most business owners are really doing when it comes down to it is they're guessing. They're trusting their gut and they're hoping that everything works the way that they think it's going to work when they did the back of the math calculation in the back of their head, right? It's not really fact based. It's not really data driven. It's just, I saw somebody else do that. I'm going to copy it and hope it works for me too. And your likelihood of success when you approach it that way is just significantly lower. Whereas when you're working with actual data and you know down to a pretty small number what your actual cash flow is month over month, you know exactly how much it costs you to run your business and how much free cash flow you have and how you can deploy that cash flow to go out and buy growth. That's just a completely different scenario that makes your likelihood of success significantly higher because you're working with real data. But the other thing is you are maximizing profitability in that process, because what happens when you don't have financial clarity is you leave money on the table every single time. I've yet to see a company that did not have financial clarity in their business that was maximizing profitability. It just doesn't happen, because what happens is your accounting will be wrong, and you will. I see this happen all the time. Business owners will tell me, "Man, we have a great gross margin, Luke. We're like 40-50% gross profit. We're killing it, but for some reason we're just really struggling with cash flow." It's like, okay, well, let's go take a look. And we start digging in and we find out, yeah, your accounting says you have 40 or 50% margins. The only problem is your accounting's wrong. So you think you have 40 or 50% margins because that's what your accounting's telling you, but when we go fix the accounting, you actually have 20 to 30% margins, which is a huge difference. And now we've just uncovered the fact that you have a pricing issue in your business. Instead of getting 40 or 50% margins, which are totally attainable in your industry, you're leaving 10 to 20% on the table in every job that you do because you don't have a clearly defined pricing strategy. You're not reviewing projects upon completion to see what your actual profitability was when you completed them. You're just operating in this guesswork space where you're allowing yourself to believe that you're more profitable than you really are. And that's why you're struggling with cash flow. Let's fix the accounting. Let's get really crystal clear on how profitable we actually are from a margin standpoint. Let's adjust our pricing where to drive profitability where it should be. Now we've got the cash flow that we need to run this business the way it was supposed to be run all along.
Okay, so that's really an interesting point because a lot of times, I'm usually a lot of times dealing with companies that don't have a history of data to look at. They're forecasting what
Yeah.
they're going to do, and I can pick up on it that when they go, "Oh, we have this huge margin," I'm like, "But you got no expenses in there,
Yeah.
right?" Or they'll do like they'll look at cost of goods, but they won't really put in even the regular operating expenses, it's all down on the very on the bottom, but they really
Yep.
hang on that top line number. And I'm thinking what you're talking about, there's hidden costs, right? I mean, are you talking, is it just untracked and therefore unallocated because it's just expenses and it kind of goes into a general fund? Or is it where they have, like you're talking about the cost of a thing, like maybe it's delayed payment. They're billing, but they're not getting paid in a timely manner, and that adds to their cost because maybe they have to pay for that money versus someplace else. Or is it all of those kind of like lots of different type of factors? So it's
Yeah.
almost like not really a needle in a haystack, but you got to go through a whole lot. It's like going through a shredder and having to piece it all together to figure out what's the picture is.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of that, depending on the company, right? It's they've got some subscription that the bookkeeper didn't feel like creating a new GL account, so they just coded that subscription to office rent or something like that, right? When in reality, that subscription is for a software that we use in our service delivery model. It's a cost of goods sold, but it's stuck down in our overhead costs because our bookkeeper didn't want to create a GL account, right?
Oh, okay.
It's stuff like that that's just errors. It's just not right to begin with, or it's just stuff that the bookkeeper didn't know any better, right? Like we have salaries and wages, and we have some of it goes to cost of goods sold, and some of it goes to admin, right? But we're just putting all of it in admin. So none of our cost of goods sold labor is showing up in cost of goods sold. It's all down in overhead. Or maybe we split out salaries and wages between cost of goods sold and overhead like we're supposed to, but we don't split sales tax or payroll tax. So all the payroll tax is down in overhead when half of it's supposed to be up in cost of goods sold because half of it is related to employees that are involved in delivering our product or service. So it's
Well,
just a lot of that kind of stuff where the accounting is just not really technically correct, and so our margin isn't correct, and our bidding process is probably not correct.
okay, so that leads into something that I have been proposing or perpetuating. I don't know what the right word is. My perception of one of the reasons why a lot of the angel investor groups out there have this what I call the Midland companies. Okay, they're the ones that everybody, it's sort of an industry standard of talking about 10 companies, and one does 10 15x and makes up for all the other ones. Some do 5x 4x. You'll have three that completely go out of business, and then you'll have this three or four in the middle that are just they raise capital, their cash flow, they're making money, but it's just enough to keep the doors open. It's not enough to actually continue to scale
Yeah.
and continue to hit the milestones, bring out new products, things like that. So my team helps them solve that problem by going to do a Reg A Plus offering and raising capital from their customers across the country and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But it it what you just said made me think that it might, because we always say, I say the reason why they do that is because the angels and the founders underestimate how much capital they're going to need in order to, and they
Yeah.
think their revenue is going to be more than what it is or faster than what it is. So the two of those things say they only have to raise that initial seed round, maybe Series A, and they're going to go off and be $100 million company, and they don't have to raise any more capital. And the reality is that that doesn't happen. And what you just said is that probably there could be an element of that, but at least equal to that is likely they're not managing their cash flow properly. They didn't
Yeah.
forecast to begin with properly, which happens a lot of times. But they didn't, and because sometimes angel investors also don't have those same financial skills. They've made their money in lots of different ways, had a good team around them, but they don't intrinsically understand it, and
Yeah.
so they don't see how this company goes sideways and goes flat because they think they're making more money than they are sooner than they are,
Yeah.
right? Because the money's coming in, they get the big contract, but they don't really allocate their expenses properly. So at the end of the day, they got a lot less cash. They can't grow like they want, and so that I mean, that just I guess I'm just reinforcing what you said, but I just to me that my aha moment just then was that this cash management is really critical even for every step of the way of a company that is raising capital that expects to be high growth.
Yeah.
We have that as one of our bullet items to talk about managing when you have a high growth kind of a company. I was thinking it was more on managing collections to be, or bringing the money in as fast as you're spending it, but it's really much more deeper than that.
Yeah, it's so much of it comes down to how you actually manage the money when it comes in the door. And so many business owners don't like the idea of budgeting because they don't want to, they feel like it's putting a leash on them, right? They don't want to feel restrained. They want to be able to be free to respond and do what they feel like they need to do as a business owner to run the company. But the reality is, you would never hire a bunch of employees and not tell them what to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, every dollar in your business is an employee, and you have to tell your employees what you need them to do for your company to be successful. And a budget is nothing more than telling your dollar employees exactly what you need them to do for your business to be successful. So that money doesn't just get wasted on stupid stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what we're trying to accomplish as a company. Not having a budget, not having a spending plan, that's how you end up with every executive parking a Porsche out front, but the company's dying, right? We spend a bunch of money on fun stuff, but none of it moves us any closer to actually achieving the goals that we have as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what you want to share any of those seven mistakes? I mean, we kind of covered them, but maybe put them into little golden nuggets for takeaways as we start to wrap up here.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It really is a lot of what we already um, talked about today, which is the concepts of not having a budget, not doing a cash flow forecast, not tracking your spending, and having good accounting systems and teams and processes in place. Spending money on accounting is about as much fun as buying new tires for your car, right? They're in that same category of things that just aren't fun to spend money on, but you put new tires on your car anyways. You know why? Because you want traction. Well, you want
Yeah.
traction in your business too, and you're going to get it out of accounting by getting really good quality data flowing through your organization that you can use to make strategic decisions with. And if you don't feel like you have traction as a business, I'd go look at how much you're spending on accounting because you're probably under investing. You probably went out and got someone on the cheap that could do the books just for the tax guy, to your point earlier. And you're not really using or leveraging the accounting function of your business as a value driver for how you make strategic decisions about how you grow your company.
Yeah. Okay, I want to make sure everybody knows your website. It is cruzumi.com, CRUZUMI.com.
Yes.
And go there to learn more about your company. And I guess they can set an appointment up with you there and stuff
Yes.
like that. And you're on LinkedIn as straight up your name, Luke Boyinger, so people can find
Yeah.
you there as well to connect with you and learn more about all of this. Um,
Yeah. Fun fact, I'm the only Luke Boyinger in the United States, so I'm easy to find.
well, it's interesting. I was looking for you before. I had, there's not even a lot of Boyingers out there.
There's not.
What's the
We're
origin
rare
of that
breed.
number? What does that hail from? I mean, that name. What does it hail from? What's the historical origin? Do you know?
I my parents always told us that our breed is fence jumper. We're such a mix of so many different things at this
Okay.
point that it would be hard to say.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know, like sometimes people's names are changed as they came into the United States
Hmm.
in their very first immigration and back then, and then, my name Rands hails from Scotland and England and kind of up in
Okay.
those areas, right? So,
Yeah.
so anyway, so anything else you want to add that you haven't had a chance? I didn't ask you at this point in time.
No, not really. I mean, we covered quite a bit of ground today. I would just say, if you're in that position where cash flow is a struggle, you feel like you're not getting traction, the business isn't moving forward like you want it to, the answer is probably somewhere on the finance side of the house. And if you're in a position where it doesn't make sense for you to hire a full-time CFO, go take a good hard look at a fractional. I mean, I think you owe it to yourself to at least go have a conversation with one and just get some thoughts from them on, hey, here's where I am, here's where I'm trying to go. Is this even something you can help with? Most fractional CFOs will do a free consultation for you and at least give you some thoughts and feedback and opinions that you may be able to use to go make some progress on your own, even if you decide not to work with them. But fractional CFOs, our job is to pay for ourselves. If we don't deliver incrementally more value than what we charge you, then we have not done our job.
Very good. I think that's a good point for a lot of people. So with that, I always say onwards and upwards to the folks that are listening. Please like this, share it. It really makes a difference in getting the word about compassionate capitalism out there. Some of these golden nuggets for the success of the businesses for you as a business owner, for the investors that are investing in businesses, as well as being able to share it in the world. So please like and share, and uh, see you next week. Onwards and upwards. All right. So that's our stop. Let's keep uploading here for a minute. Looks like yours is done.